Ciao.
Keeping up with the Commodore, 'cause the Commodore's keeping up with you. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? 'Cause the Commodore's keeping...
Not just serve jelly beans and popcorn.
I did not.
For Thanksgiving.
I thought about it, though. I threatened to do it.
Yeah.
I thought it would be good. I thought it was very appropriate, and I was told that was not Thanksgiving food, and I said it very much is.
As seen on TV. Of course, exactly. Well, as sort of seen on TV, except now as seen on... Adam Christianson is here with us, everybody. Adam Christianson, he of the MacCast, online at MacCast.com and also at MacCast if you want to follow him on Twitter. Got to show that show to a 10-year-old for the first time ever this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? It's because she grew up in the UK. So, not a big thing. Thanksgiving, actually, not a terribly big thing.
Not so much.
Right?
Yeah.
And Peanuts, about the same, I think. And she was kind of into it, which was great because usually if you try to show her something, she'll just stare at a computer the whole time and then look up every 5 minutes and say, why are they doing that? And you're like, well, if you've been watching for the past 5 minutes, you'd know. But yeah, she was actually talking about the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving the next day, talking about something that happened on it. So I feel like that was a gigantic win.
It spans generations for sure. Unlike other things, Disney's Black Hole. That may just be a thing for another time.
I keep thinking about watching that again because, of course, it's on Disney Plus. And I keep thinking about it. And, my partner in crime on Mission Log, John Champion, swears by that movie, says it's absolutely a fantastic movie. And I still just can't. The fact that one of the droids is voiced by Slim Pickens, I like Slim Pickens, but it's not synonymous with science fiction. Really?
Had so much nostalgia for it as a kid. I couldn't wait to show it to my kids. It was never out. It was like in the Disney Vault.
Yeah.
It finally became available on Apple TV at some point. This was before Disney Plus.
Yeah. Oh, really? I
rushed to buy it. I'm like, we're going to watch this thing.
Oh, no.
I don't want to ruin it for you, but you should watch it. I'd love to know what you think.
I'm assuming it doesn't hold up.
For me, it didn't hold. Yeah. The nostalgia didn't hold up.
Yeah.
But man, it's got a great cast.
Yeah, it's got a fantastic Ernest Borgnine, Tony Perkins.
Great robots.
Yeah.
Great special effects. Those do hold up.
Yeah.
But I guess as a kid, I got hung up with the robots for the most part.
Sure.
And that's what was the appeal to me.
Yeah. I get that.
The robots are great.
I don't remember, honestly, what I thought of that movie when I was a kid. I think it was sort of like everything else. Like, after Star Wars, my parents would just take me, or my mother and stepfather would just take me to whatever science fiction thing came out, which is how I happened to see Star Trek the Motion Picture on opening day. It's not that I was that big of a Star Trek fan. It's just, we had the day, and it was a new movie. And, we actually went to, so it was the Lowe's Melrose Theater in Nashville, Tennessee, which does not exist anymore. The McDonald's, that's sort of like in the same parking lot as where that theater used to be, does still exist as far as I know. Last time I was there a few years ago, I saw it, so it's still there. Been updated, obviously, since 1979. But that day saw Star Trek the Motion Picture and got the first ever Happy Meal. Because they launched the first ever Happy Meal in conjunction with Star Trek the Motion Picture. And they had a box that had all the Star Trek stuff on the outside and the wrist communicator, which looks a lot like an Apple Watch in retrospect. It's a horrible looking wrist communicator. It's a piece of plastic, basically, that you could put pictures inside that came in that. Yeah. That one I say does hold up, probably better than when I was a kid. You've now got me both excited and nervous to watch The Black Hole.
We got to reconnect after you watch it. Then we'll have a conversation.
I tell you what, I will try to watch it sometime before the holidays. And maybe we can get together and do a holiday, here is our gift to you. Either watch The Black Hole or don't watch The Black Hole, depending on how that turns out. So Monday, Adam, I think you might remember this from the last time you were on. Monday, we do a thing on the show called It's News to Blank, where basically I call somebody and say, hey, before we get into the stuff that I'm interested in talking about, I'm curious to hear something that you're interested in talking about. And so when I throw it to you and I say, it's news to Adam, Adam says what's news to him is...
Linus Torvalds doubts that Linux will get ported to Apple's M1 hardware.
Okay, that's the headline. Now, I'm curious, is the thing that appeals to you the fact that he doubts it's going to happen, but it might, or just the fact that he even wants it?
Well, the headline kind of got me at first. It didn't surprise me that he would want it because I knew way back when I had remembered this that he likes Apple hardware. Obviously, he doesn't run Mac OS on it. He would always run some variant of Linux. And I didn't remember that he had gotten rid of his 13-inch MacBook, which was his favorite, apparently, as I found out when I read the article. But then what really got me about the article was just some of the rationale as to why Linux wouldn't get ported to Apple's M1 hardware. Because my assumption would be that it should be able to run Linux. There are Linux variants that run on ARM, all those sorts of things. So that didn't seem like it would be that big of a trick to me. But I guess in reading through the article, and this totally makes sense, is the fact that it's probably more likely the GPUs that are an issue because you need GPU drivers. And this is another reason why I think we don't have eGPU support yet with Apple's M1s is because you need graphics drivers, right? And they just don't exist. And to think that Apple would give up enough information to allow somebody to actually engineer a graphics driver for a Linux, they're probably not going to do that.
All right,
this is what it came down to. So I found that very interesting.
Anybody who's listened to me for any length of time knows that when you start talking about certain levels of things, I don't know what you're talking about. I tend to come at it from a business side or from a consumer side.
Sure.
So when you say, well, we need graphic drivers and we don't have them, is the graphic driver something that Apple would supply? Is the graphics driver something that somebody would need to look at everything that Apple's got and say, okay, here's how you write it? And then you're saying that Apple is leaving its graphics stuff so locked down that nobody will even be able to get that look to write the driver?
Correct. Yeah, okay. Essentially. Yeah. So Apple has no interest in, running any other operating system on the M1 than Mac OS. And why would they? I mean, if you want to get to the business side of it, I mean, there's no business reason for them to make that information available. Plus, they obviously want to keep it very secret in terms of the chip. So, the chip's locked down. I mean, I guess the CPU side of things too. I mean, they're not using straight up, ARM. They use ARM instruction sets, but it's not an ARM processor. Like a lot of people will say it's an ARM processor. Well, no, it's an Apple processor that licenses ARM technology, but it's very much proprietary. So, yeah, the issue is going to be just the lack of information around that processor, and being able to write another operating system for it would be extremely difficult. I think if they just had the CPU to deal with, they could probably reverse engineer it, because I don't think it's that far off like ARM. But when they brought up the graphics stuff, I thought, yep, that's probably where it's going to get really tough. Never say never. I mean, there's a lot of smart people out there. Someone could end up reverse engineering it and figure it out, but it's probably a long ways off, if at all. Even then, though, the reverse engineering is just, setting a bunch of hoops for people to have to jump through, right? I mean, it's not like something like Boot Camp where it was, still kind of a pain because you had to, load the other operating system on there and then boot into it. But, you're not even talking about that. You'd be almost talking about a reverse Hackintosh in a way, right? Of like, oh, we got this Mac to run these other things, but really it shouldn't. And also never update your machine again because it might not after that. Yeah. What's interesting, though, is too, then I thought, well, with how much the performance on that chip is getting buzz, we do know that there's going to be virtualization software like Parallels and VMware is going to get up and running natively on it. And within those virtualizations, you could run all kinds of variants of Linux, and they might even run faster in virtualization on the M1 than they would natively on an Intel. So, I guess he could maybe back his way into it if he wanted to have to boot into Mac first and then run in virtualization. But I don't think that's what Linus Torvalds into. I think he just wants it running natively. More of what's news to Adam in a moment, but first I am stoked to welcome a new sponsor to In a Few Minutes. It's Remote HQ.
letting you collaborate as if you were in the same room. I mean, with other people. I assume that you personally are in the same room. If not, you should see somebody. In the before times, if you and a coworker were looking at a website, either one of you could grab the mouse and point where you needed to go. If there was a whiteboard, anybody could grab a marker and mark it up. You can do that and more with Remote HQ. There's a lot I like about how it works, like the various apps you can access. Google Docs, Miro, Dropbox, Trello. I also like the shared note-taking and the whiteboard that I mentioned. Set each one so one person has control or leave them open for attendee input. As if you were in the same room. And my favorite part, no downloads. I ran a group meet the other day with a few people, none of whom had to sign up for anything. They just clicked the link I sent, and away we went. If you're still struggling with finding the right collaboration tools for your business or personal projects, give Remote HQ a try. Go to remotehq.com/partnerships/minutes for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code MINUTES for 3 months free. I'll be telling you more about them throughout the week. In the meantime, though, try them for yourself. Go to remotehq.com/partnerships/minutes for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code MINUTES for 3 months free. The other thing that interested me was, okay, well, we've had ARM processors. Why have we not had what we're now getting from the Mac? And then reading in that article, they said, well, there's the Pinebook Pro, which is about $200. I had never heard of it. It's apparently an ARM-based laptop, but ridiculously underpowered. There was some other, I think it was the Raspberry Pi. There was a laptop for that they talked about as well.
That's actually even more interesting. That's the new Model 400, which is, you remember like the Commodore 64 or like the PET or whatever? So it's an entire computer built into a keyboard.
Nice.
It's based on the Raspberry Pi.
Nice.
So it is a Raspberry Pi, but it's basically built into a keyboard. So keyboard, computer, all in one.
Yeah, there's an interesting the interesting thing that because when I was reading the first part of the article, I was saying to myself, well, why doesn't somebody build this man the machine that he wants? And then reading the second half of the article, I realized, well, they're going to. I mean, and it won't be as necessarily as efficient as what Apple is doing because it's not going to have the whole soup to nuts thing. It's going to be the same issue that you have with the x86, right? Of this chip will run whatever you want to, and you then have to tailor yourself to that. Whereas what Apple is doing is, right, we're building a chip that's going to work with our operating system, and we know all of the ins and outs rather than having to sort of adapt it to something else in a way. Mm-hmm. I mean, you might end up with a machine that's almost M1, but I mean, it still probably wouldn't have the same level of performance either because you're dealing with a hardware manufacturer who's, making something that everybody can use. I mean, does that sound right? Does that sound fair, or will we actually get there?
I think everybody in the processor industry is now scrambling. Mm-hmm. And so this is what's happening, be it, NVIDIA or Intel. But yeah, as the article pointed out, the problem so far with ARM-based processors is everybody's been thinking about them as low-cost, low-power, cheap solutions. Mm-hmm. And now what Apple has done is shown exactly the opposite. You can take this technology and make something very high-end and very fast and very energy efficient. And as many articles I've read have rightly pointed out, this is the worst M1 processor Apple's ever going to make. Right? This is the slowest one. Right? This is the least performant one ever. And everybody else is going to scramble to catch it, which is kind of crazy.